My guest today is Jonty Rhodes.
I don't think anyone was at Jonty's level.
I think I preferred hockey over cricket because I was involved with the first referral, ran out Sachin Tendulkar. And the sad thing was that because of the match fixing and the life ban from cricket,
Any Indian players you could think about who came in and played their strengths?
MS Dhoni, he's very powerful, so his legs are really strong. He was so quick between the wickets, still is at over 40. And he's somebody who utilized his strength without going, okay, I've got to change it. Technically, I'm not correct, so I've got to change this. He stayed with what he's good at, and he's been really successful, no matter the plans against him.
What's your fascination with India?
India, I mean, they talk about diversity across states, but within states there's such diversity. Growing up in a white privileged environment in South Africa, there was no diversity that I was ever exposed to.
But do you think that too much of flow of money impacts or affects the longevity of the game?
Cricket is a business. I don't think there's too much money in the game. It is business for people who run it and for people who participate in it. We launched T20 cricket in South Africa through the bank, but at that stage it wasn't there. So my career was going to be a banker. And if I hadn't taken that step to work in the bank, possibly T20 cricket in South Africa wouldn't have started.
Hi, welcome to The Other Side. I'm your host, Dilip, an entrepreneur and an endurance athlete. In this podcast, we will explore the experiences of high-performing individuals while unpacking their mental and physical fitness routines that took them to where they are. Jonty, thank you very much for taking time and sitting down with me for having this conversation.
Yep, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's get into it. You're very well known, so I'm not going to spend time or the intro, we'll get that done later, but I want to get started. Your Twitter profile, the bio says Jack in the Box of cricket. What does that mean?
Well, Jack in the Box, I had a lot of energy. I still have a lot of energy. So the kind of jumping around, I'm sure it says something about master, Jack of all trades, but master of none, or something like that. Because, you know, as a cricket player, I was supposed to be a specialist batter. My average was very average, but I certainly made a name for myself as a fielder in an era where there wasn't much fielding. But the Jack in the Box is just the energy. I mean, there was a toy, Jack in the Box, you open the lid, this thing jumps out, and that was the Jack in the Box. And I think that sort of summed up my personality on and off the cricket field, because you'll have a lot of people who have a persona that they carry on to the field, and that's them on the field, and then they retreat back into their own space, into who they really are. And it's sometimes quite difficult knowing the essence of, I mean, which part, you know, are you the cricket player or the celebrity, or are you just yourself? And fortunately, that sort of persona was as, you know, energetic on and off the field. So generally, I was the same person.
No, that's very refreshing, because that's very quite unlike to celebrity or even specifically sportsmen describing their identity. I mean, nowhere you speak about what your coaching assignment is or what historical achievements you've got, but that was very refreshing. So I mean, I really wanted to start with that. But let's jog back to a time where your personality was getting developed, early 70s and 80s. You had epilepsy early as we were growing up. Knowing that, how did your parents made you introduced to sports? How did you personally navigate through that? Wasn't that a constraint to you in getting adopted to sports?
Well, the interesting thing about the epilepsy, first, it was quite a mild form of epilepsy, so I never required medication. I never would walk down the street and have a seizure, or, you know, being in a swimming pool, and so my parents didn't have that concern. The problem was that I would get concussed very easily. So they termed it reflexive epilepsy. So as long as I kept my head out of places it wasn't supposed to be, then I should be. Because when I was 6 or 7, I kept getting concussed, and they didn't know, and uncommonly so. You know, kids run into each other. We were very outdoor active in South Africa growing up. My parents are both teachers, so I grew up in an environment where my father was as a teacher then, you were also a sports master. He then became the head of department, principal at the school. So he was always the first one there and the last one to leave. So, you know, we had the opportunity to sort of develop our love for sport at that stage. And because my parents were both teachers, they also understood that kids can be nasty to each other if you perceive to be different. So with the epilepsy that was diagnosed eventually, after kind of not knowing what was going on, they then just said, hey man, we're not going to wrap you in cotton wool. I was the only kid in South Africa that actually had to bat with a helmet. They had to source a helmet from the UK. There were no helmets in South Africa. I mean, now it's compulsory. You play hardball cricket as a youngster playing any level of cricket in South Africa, whether it's school or state. Playing hardball cricket, you have to wear a helmet. But then it wasn't available. So they really understood that, you've got epilepsy, so you can't play rugby, which my dad was a rugby player, so that was quite tough. My younger brother became quite a good rugby player, playing for state rugby after school and studying at university. But it was more a case of, if you know your limitations, then you can overcome them. I never fought the epilepsy, but instead of playing rugby, and then the irony of all of it is that at a rugby school, I played hockey and soccer, which wasn't as popular as rugby. Yeah. I was a tennis player as well. And those skills the sports that I played, because I couldn't play rugby, actually turned me into a pretty decent fielder. Because when you're playing hockey, you're running with the ball in the end of the stick, so in a low position, running at speed. Playing football, hockey and football, I was the striker. So you always had the goalkeeper trying to stop the ball going in the goals. What I saw, the techniques that the goalkeeper had trying to stop me scoring, I then developed as a fielder, not just playing for, but even at school. And sort of employed those tactics that a goalkeeper utilized to try and keep me from scoring a goal. So that epilepsy was an incredible process. Firstly, it wasn't a massive issue in our house. I was never treated differently to my two brothers, or any of the other kids in the school. So I think from that point of view, I'm grateful that my parents had that awareness as teachers, that if they could have cotton rule, because I think many parents have that, they really want to ensure their children don't get hurt. And my parents were more than happy, go play, climb trees, just be aware. And knowing that if I fell and got concussed and woke up vomiting, it wasn't serious at that stage, it was a mild form. They felt there would be more serious consequences down the road if they kept me from doing or leading as normal a life as possible.
Yeah, I want to talk about the transformation, not yet into your professional cricket, but your first cricket match. You were not supposed to play the cricket match. You were a 12th man, right? And you've always said that you were always a better hockey player than a cricketer. So did cricket choose you, or you choose cricket?
Cricket definitely chose me. That first game, I was my first year at university, so I was 18, 19 years old, and I was down to play to be at the state, because I was already had a name as a good fielder. So that brought me in to be the 12th man for the game. It was only a 3-day first-class match. And in the morning of the game, and there were a couple of the players that were from my school, their alma mater was my school, and this is really old school cricket, semi-professional in South Africa, and they just said, Jonty, give you one piece of advice, don't be a good 12th man, because then you'll get the job all the time. They want to be on the field. That's where all the limelight is, and that's where you make some money. Being 12th man, you're not, if you do a good job, and I was, I think because my parents are both teachers, their sacrifice is incredible. You're looking after thousands of kids, and not at the cost of your own, but certainly they're investing in other people's children. And my goal was to be sort of the best 12th man that I could be. So I went there with an attitude that I'm going to be 12th man, but I'm going to do everything to allow the rest of the team to play to the best of their potential. And in the morning of the game, just before the toss of the coin, where you're going to announce your playing 11, so there were only 12 of us. And a hospital phoned, there was no mobile phones. This is now 1988, 89. And the opening batter had to go to hospital. His wife was having a baby. So we were down to 11 players. So I went from being 12th man to batting at number 6, and I got a century on first-class debut, which hadn't happened before for 50 odd years in South Africa. So, suddenly my entrance into the first-class cricket, because there was no international cricket at that stage, was quite loudly announced. And I think the key there for me, and it's interesting now, Justin Lang is a new head coach in Lucknow, and he talks to the players, because you've got 24 players in a squad, and obviously only 11 or 12 can play in the game, and it's quite frustrating not getting on the field. And he just talks about, being ready as opposed to have to get ready. Just be ready the whole time. And it's actually a quote from Will Smith, of all things. You got an actor, Bollywood, I suppose, people would understand in India.
Yeah.
But he just references the whole time, be ready. Don't get the call up and now have to get ready.
Yeah.
So that was, an attitude that I've always had. I was also 12th man for South Africa for 2 years. I was dropped from the test team. And the same thing, you go on tour, sweeping the dressing room, putting the stuff in the dressing rooms in New Zealand, there's always mud from the field. And in Sri Lanka or parts of India, it's always hot and sweaty and humid. So players have got wet socks and wet vests, and I'm putting that in the tumble dry. So just trying to be the best 12th man that I could was an attitude that started at the beginning of my first class career, and certainly has stood me in good stead.
No, that's a great way to say you got to be ready all the time. But 1992, you were ready. You were invited to tour India with the South African team. But then you said you're not keen and you want to go back and finish your university studies.
Yeah.
You probably would be in your early teens then. At that age, what was the mental model which, like you said, international sports, cricket getting all the attention, it could have been a big deal, right? But you backed off and you said that you want to go and finish your academics first. What made you choose that decision?
Well, I suppose that with my parents as teachers never put pressure on the academic side, which was quite surprising. I mean, they really were concerned more about a well-balanced child and dealing with, we had at junior school 600 boys, at high school 1,000 boys. My parents in the schooling system understood that without balance, any kind of focus is always going to play out down the line. So international cricket at that stage, there was at the end of 1991, September, October, the team was invited to come to India, and we weren't a democracy, so it was almost like we were on not quite parole, but South Africa was heading possibly away from apartheid, but no one was sure yet at that stage. So it also wasn't a case of, well, here's cricket as a career. And I had already, my first year, I failed so badly. I bombed. I was playing state hockey, state cricket. It was a new environment for me. The university actually put me in with all the seniors in one of the dormitories, because they just said, we don't think you're going to be focused enough on your studies. And sure enough, I wasn't. So I bombed first year. I love reading. So as a commercial student, my elective was English, because I love reading. That's the only credit that I ever passed, was because I loved reading books. And then had to literally then focus. I need to get my degree, one day get a job. And because if you want to play sport, you have to fund yourself. You have to get a job, because all the players that I was playing with were all working, and they were all taking time off. I know in India there's sort of systems here where you played for railways or Air India, but for us, everybody was working either in a family business or in organizations. So it was for me a real focus that yes, possibly there is sort of light at the end of the tunnel. South Africa might get back into international cricket. But I was a very average state player. So there wasn't a case of, it's a dream for me to play for South Africa. It was more a case of, okay, there's certain steps in the process, and if you skip steps, you kind of lose the foundation. So a part of that foundation was getting the post-cricket or some sort of security away from the game, which then wouldn't say, okay, so if you don't make it as a cricketer, you're actually in deep trouble, because there is nothing else.
Yeah.
So that was more of a consideration. And it wasn't my final year. My final year was the following year, 1992, where we were at the World Cup for 3 months, straight to the West Indies. So I missed the entire first half of the year. I was catching up notes. It was ridiculous. But again, by then I had a bit of discipline on the study side and quite a drive to get my degree done.
How much of that thought process do you think is even relevant today? Because back in the days, that was a plan B for you. And of course, cricket as a sport was not as celebrated, and perhaps you can't build a professional career out of it. But today, cricket, not just in India, but world over, it's everything, right? Kids right from, 8, 10-year-old are on the field playing and just eyeing for that. Do you think that thought process even now is relevant, that you should always have a plan B, and academics and sports can go parallel?
I think what's been interesting, and we've seen it through online learning, and it's not just from the pandemic where schooling systems were shut down, but we had sort of tertiary education in South Africa offering courses online, and what, again, some of the state cricket bodies have decided that to take the pressure off the players, yes, they want them to be come through the academy and spend every day almost of the season training and practicing. So you can't go to university, you can't get a degree in the traditional sense. So they encourage players to take courses. So instead of saying, okay, so you're going to get a full Bachelor of Commerce at the end of 4 years, or if you want to get into accounting, sure, then maybe that's a specialist option. But they do provide through the Players Association in South Africa, and they encourage youngsters to take courses as well. So while you're studying, while you're spending all day and you can't go to university, you can't go to campus, there are online courses, because again, it also just grows the discipline, the self-discipline. Taking ownership of your own career is so important, because it correlates to being a successful cricketer. You can't, the captain can't make the decision for you. Yes, there's plan and the coaching, the same thing. Once the game starts, you have to make those decisions, and they are split second. Yeah. So there's no conferring, send a message to the coach and what do you think and get feedback. You have to make that decision straight away. And again, that balance is so important. So the opportunity to get in and be a sports person is fantastic. And it's not a case of, well, this is my crutch, and if I don't succeed, then at least I've got something else. It's also being a well-rounded individual, which I think the game these days definitely requires. Any sport that you're playing, you need to be able to see a bigger picture, not always just focus on the ball. And having an understanding of how that bigger picture works sometimes does benefit your actual, the sport that you're playing.
Yeah, I don't know how many people would know, but I want to put this as a trivia that you were almost to be part of 2 Olympics as a hockey player for South Africa, 1992, 1996, but you couldn't go through 1996 because you had a hamstring injury. How often do you bring that up as your part of your biography?
I actually never do. I generally end up, I do some leadership talks here in India, quite a bit of corporate talking, and on the, you can never believe everything you see on the internet, because I'm given that South African hockey cap. I mean, people say, he played hockey for South Africa, and I never got to play for South Africa. So, it's never a case of, I always knew that, and you had alluded to it earlier in the questions, how did I choose cricket over hockey? But having made that World Cup team, the Cricket World Cup in 1992, I was still playing state hockey, because we weren't a democracy in South Africa. So we were the only sport that we were the only sport that was a unified administrative body. So Cricket South Africa, during the days of apartheid, there was a white and a non-white governing body, and Dr. Ali Bacher, who was the CEO of cricket in the 90s, he unified the 2 cricketing bodies. So all the other sporting codes had separate organizations that ran white and non-white sport. So we only became a democracy in 1994, and then all the sports were then obviously unified. So hockey only got to play international level in post-1994 elections. So cricket in 1993, we toured Sri Lanka in August, September, which is our winter in South Africa. So, the end of the hockey season, that was that time. And then 1994, we toured England for the first time. And that was for 3 months. And that was the whole winter in South Africa. So my hockey, couldn't play hockey. And then 95, I still played state hockey. So I got back to play. But then just before the Olympics in 96, there was way too much cricket going on. And even though the hockey were back in, all my hockey friends were having to work. They had to raise money. There was no money in the sport. So it didn't look like, if I've got a choice of cricket and hockey, hockey is the way to go. If I'm already established in the cricket team, let's just make sure that I focus on that. So again, it was cricket choosing me, because I really believed that I was a better hockey player than a cricket player at that stage.
Yeah, talking about establishing, is it fair to say that Inzamam ul Haq and V.V. Krishnan, the sports photographer, literally launched your career in 1992?
Yeah, there's a couple of photographers that claim credit for that. But yes, it literally launched my career. So,
and I'm sure, I'm sorry to cut you, but the internet is full of that video and its commentary, but I want you to tell the first time you described or elaborated that experience to your daughter and son. What was that like? How did you explain them? What was that moment be?
Yeah, they don't really look. I mean, we don't have a television at home. So they get iPad time, screen time on weekends, because then because we're generally an outdoor family. But it launched my career, but it's not something it's not on the wall. I don't have memorabilia. I have nothing.
Maybe they're not on YouTube yet.
No, they're not on YouTube yet. So in fact, Nathan at 6 is on YouTube, but he's learning how to fold paper airplanes. So and he does planes that loop and planes that go fast and planes that go. So He's an engineer, and the paper aeroplanes are his thing. So he follows YouTube for that. But that whole thought process was and I've been asked since 1992 a million times, and it literally was a case of on the day it had rained, so the ball was wet, the outfield was still fairly wet, the bowlers were struggling. Before the Duckworth-Lewis rule came into play in '92, it was heavily in favour of the team who had batted first, the rain law. So Pakistan were batting second. The asking rate became sort of 9s or 10s, and in those days 9 and over was massive. And Inzamam was batting with Imran Khan, and Inzi and they were actually hitting us all over the place. Because generally, as a soccer goalkeeper and a hockey goalkeeper, my thought process would come as close as possible as the goalkeepers did against me to cut the angle down, because then I didn't have 5 meters to run. I could literally, the first meter or two was within my range, and I wasn't cutting down the angle that day in Brisbane because the ball was traveling to the boundary. So my option was not saving the single; it was more about saving the boundary. So on the circle, I just remember seeing the ball hit the pad and it kind of looped out and to backward point, almost sort of gully region. And being a hockey player and being a football player, it's nice because you get a lot of peripheral vision, so you have an awareness of what's going on around you, whereas cricket, often it's just tunnel focused. You're just watching the ball and that's your only awareness. And I could see Imran Khan, the non-strikers, he had his hand up, so he wasn't coming. So it was a case of going, okay, I loved my fielding, and fielding then was catching balls, stopping balls. We didn't have a fielding coach, we didn't have the nets that we have now, or the rebound stumps. So I never really threw. Occasionally we would do a couple of drills that wouldn't require you to throw the ball at the stumps. But again, an important lesson for me was kind of backing my strength. So my strength was my speed. Inzi was 19 years old, a lumbering young man, and he carried on lumbering throughout his career. I mean, incredible batter with great cricketing stats, but he wasn't the fastest guy already as a 19. He was a big kid. And as he kind of went out of his crease and I could see he would have to turn to come back, I really believed that instead of trying to throw and maybe missing, we were desperate for a wicket because their partnership was taking the game away from us. And the only guarantee I had of hitting the stumps was running there with the ball. So the plan was to go and just knock the bails off. But then Inzamam, I could see coming, even with my focus on the stumps, I could see he was coming back sooner than I'd kind of anticipated. And I just really felt that the fastest way to complete those last 2 meters was to dive full strength or full stretch. So that, and one of the photographers, because then there was an Australian photographer who took a black and white picture, and it was me diving into the stumps horizontal, and I got on a call with him a couple of years ago, and he spoke about, he was focused on Inzamam, and he's got 3, because before digital camera, they would literally have runners every day coming in to fetch the films and go produce them and develop them. And he said he had 3 pictures of that incident. One was on Inzamam with me in my head coming into shot. The next one was that horizontal picture of me. And then the third one was my feet disappearing out the frame, still on Inzamam. So his focus was on Inzamam, and I just dived through the picture, literally. Yeah. So yes, my career was launched, because in the first game, I got a run out against Australia, throwing the ball back to the bowler. I hadn't batted, I'd hardly scored a run in that tournament. But Mike Proctor, who was the coach of South Africa at the time, because people were asking, who are these kids? Hansie Cronje, Jonty Rhodes. We look at their first-class stats, they're not great. And Kepler Wessels, who was captaining South Africa, had played in Australia. And the fields then, there were no boundary ropes on the inside. The boundary was the concrete advertising board or wooden picket fence. So, and they were multi-purpose stadiums in Australia. So this Aussie rules football, that's AFL that they play, massive grounds where you almost had to relay throw from the boundary back to the stumps. And Kepler wanted fast youngsters in the middle order to run the ball and also, to be fielders. And Mike Proctor was kind of justifying my selection, saying, watch, Jonty Rhodes will do something special in the field. That was a special moment, but captured well. But I'd never done that at practice before. I never did it again. So it just seemed the right thing at the right time, and kind of worked out.
No, thank you. I know you probably might have spoken more than 1 million times, but thank you for recreating those experiences. You spoke about decision making. I want to ask, at that match or during that time, third umpire was not introduced. Steve Buckner was the umpire then. Did you ever go back to Steve and ask what made him make the decision to the favor?
Well, the interesting, I mean, I have had quite a strong relationship with Steve Buckner at that time, because then in 1993, so then they introduced, because I was involved with the first referral, ran out Sachin Tendulkar, when the first time they used, and in those days the green light was out, you had to go, basically, yes, the batter must now go. And it was in Durban in a test match, and I threw the ball at the stumps. People don't know that, but I missed the stumps, but Andrew Hudson had short leg, he had come up to the stumps. So he picked, the ball shaved the stumps, and he picked it up and ran out at Sachin, barely there. And then the second test match in Johannesburg at the Wanderers, Steve Buckner was standing at the bowler's end. Javagal Srinath was at mid-off. So I hit the ball to Javi and I ran. And he directly hit the stumps. And they called for because the umpires still is umpire's discretion. He doesn't have to call for the third umpire. And Steve Buckner said not out. And I think Kapil Dev might have been bowling. I mean, there was pandemonium. And he said, no, it had only been used once, and it was the second test match of it being used. And Steve Buckner said, he's safe. So, he's, I have spoken to him quite a bit about the third umpire in those days. And, I suppose the whole reason why the third umpire was there to take out, he kind of went with what he felt, because let's face it, I mean, margins generally, which is why I was so inaccurate as a thrower, because you had to throw, the batter had to be at least half a meter out for the umpire to feel like, okay, that's out. Because there's no ways you can see the stumps and where the bat is. You almost have to feel it. Yeah. And umpiring is such a difficult job. And,
it is.
And a lot of it went on kind of gut feel. And that comes from practice. Yeah. It doesn't just happen overnight. Yeah. So his experiences kind of, he just felt, and maybe he also seen Inzamam batting in that 92 World Cup, and he realized how slow he was compared to Jonty. He must be out, I'll go with that. I'll go with the speedy guy.
Yeah.
So if it comes down to a race, put my money on the faster guy to have won it. And it was marginally, I mean, it was just out. But for an umpire with a naked eye to make that, it was more about, it feels right. Okay.
I mean, so many protagonists at this moment, and, and I read that that moment was one of the top 10 cricketing moments of the last millennium. So many people involved, and I'm, appreciate you bringing up everyone and not just talk about your own skills and your own agility. You've often spoken that you thrive and you do good in a team environment, in team sports, and not in solo sports. When and how did you identify that character on you?
Well, it was even as a junior tennis player. I mean, I was playing. I am talking about myself now. Sorry, you've now.
We should talk about
I'm talking myself. So, and also, remembering that growing up in South Africa, a white apartheid government, I only played against and with white boys and kids. So the competition was very limited in South Africa. So I was a state level cricket player, tennis player, football player, and no hockey, because at the boys' school, hockey wasn't a popular sport. As I said, it was more rugby. So we used to play against girls from the high schools, because they were the only teams that were playing 11 player hockey at the time. So no other junior schools had a boys hockey team. So as a state level under 13, a 13-year-old tennis player, I was number 4 in the state, and I hated the singles but loved the doubles. So right from the very beginning, I've always been way more, have enjoyed the sort of the being a part, even if it's two. There's two in a doubles team. And that was the interesting thing, because cricket and hockey, I think I preferred hockey over cricket, because cricket is a team sport, but it depends on the individual's performance. It's you facing the bowler or you bowling to the batter. And yes, it's a team game, but whereas with hockey, sure, I could score a goal, but it had to come from the back through the midfield, out wide to the winger, into the middle. So it required the whole team to be involved. And I think I'd always felt that I was a better hockey player because I was more relaxed in that environment. I used to throw up before going out to bat playing cricket as a young state cricket player. I mean, literally have to go to the bathroom, and so nervous that, I was not the kind of player that would sit and you see guys sitting waiting to go bat and they wouldn't move. I mean, I was up and down, my feet were moving, because if I didn't, I would be an absolute ball of negative energy, as opposed to, okay, let's use this tension and adrenaline to sort of increase or enhance my performance naturally. If you get too frozen and too uptight, and there's no release for that sort of energy, it does make you stiff at the crease, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
So I've always been someone who's, because you can also then, if you fail, you can still add value to the team. And that was, as a fielder, I had that opportunity. So I was never an all-rounder. Yeah. But it never then became about my performance with the bat on the day. I could still make a contribution, because if you fail as a batter and that's your only job, there's not a lot more you can do to add value to the team. So, I've always enjoyed that opportunity where it wasn't my day with the bat, but man, I can still be a live wire in the field. I can help the bowler, I can help the team, and just add as much value as possible in that team environment.
So that character, that is, you're helping both the bowler and the batsman. And an extension to that, you have said that if you don't go for it, you won't know for it, right? And that's in context to cricket, that if you don't go for the catch, you don't know whether you could have got the catch. Tell me, how have you applied this narrative outside of cricket personally? Any experiences where you applied that on yourself outside of the cricket field?
Sure. I think you kind of, in a nutshell, it's having freedom to fail. Because we all have ego. So, you don't have to be an international cricket player or an ex-international player to have an ego. All of us. None of us like to fail. I worked for a bank when I retired from cricket. And at the end of the year, you have a review. And your performances are, and it's, in a business banking environment, I have clients who are then, I provide various banking services, but some of those services are like a vehicle asset finance, and that's a different division, or it's a home loan, that's a different division. So I had goals that I had to get through, or, that for the year to be successful, to get a bonus at the end of the year. Obviously, that's what you want success for when you're working in a corporate environment, is, you get a bonus. And some of those were out of my hands. But just joining a bank in the first place, because I'd obviously played international cricket for 11 years, and I knew nothing about banking. My commercial degree was more around business administration, marketing, and it wasn't specifically geared towards, okay, I'm going to be a banker. I had no idea what I wanted to be or do. So fortunately, there was a relationship. The bank was sponsoring limited overs cricket in South Africa, so I already had a communication. But going into an environment as a 33-year-old, 34-year-old international cricket player, where people have been working at the bank for almost as long as I'd been alive. So they knew everything about the bank and the products and the policies and the procedures and their clients. And it was quite intimidating. You're supposedly this superstar, and now you're going into an environment where you actually know nothing. And it's, again, ego is quite easy to say, hey, I don't want to do that because I'm going to look stupid. Like my batting days. I didn't know, whether Murali was turning it in or out, or Shane Warne was bowling the flipper. So it was, from that perspective, was, hey, if it doesn't work, then that's fine. But in that year, I'm going to learn a lot about running a business through having dealings with my clients, understanding what banks like and don't like about companies. So if I don't become a banker, then maybe it'll give me an opportunity to learn lessons if I want to start my own business down the line. But that, if you don't go, you'll never know. It was just that. It was kind of, okay, park the ego. It's going to be great life lessons. And if it ends up, I worked for the bank for 8 years, but the last 5 or 6 were as a sponsorship manager for the cricketing account, which was amazing. So, I had no idea, because we launched T20 cricket in South Africa through the bank. But at that stage, it wasn't there. So my career was going to be a banker. And if I hadn't made that opportunity or taken that step to work in the bank, possibly T20 cricket in South Africa wouldn't have started. So it is amazing. And it is that sort of freedom to fail. And a lot of it is to do with the ego, because we'll do stuff that we're comfortable and good at, because no one's going to criticize us, or if anybody looks at our work, and it's a job well done, as opposed to, this guy's 33, how does he not understand the difference between debit and credit again? So that was an interesting time in my career.
But these are two different, very pole apart identities, right? As a professional cricketer and then going into a professional corporate career, and you said there were a lot of different characters which you had to transition into. But post-retirement, as you're getting transition, there are a lot of uncommon things. But was there any common thing which, being a professional cricketer, also helped you settle and perhaps do good in the new role in Standard Bank?
I think what what did allow me, so firstly, it was always a part of a team. So, I had a mentor who sat with me in the bank. So the teamwork, and plus I had the whole business banking team. There were sort of 25 employees just in the business banking office. So that was really helpful. And as I try to add value to my teammates as a cricket player, so I was happy to receive, the assistance from and the advice from the same working group. I think what was important, though, was just successful teams in cricket enjoy the success of the people around in their team. It's not just about me. And I think that for me was a great life lesson to be able to take into a banking environment where, I didn't have a great week, or I lost a deal, or the deal didn't go through, but there are other people in the bank who've just had a great signing, and being able to enjoy their success was so important, because if you work in a corporate environment, you still break it down to teamwork, and in order to be a successfully or productive team in any environment, corporate or sport, you have to enjoy the success of the people around you, which is again why I preferred the team environment to a solo sport. So that was a really important lesson. If I had a bad day or a bad week or lost a deal, I could still enjoy the success of my teammates in the business banking sector of Standard Bank.
Yeah. Cricket has gone through a lot of evolution from your playing days to now. You're a coach, you're so still part of the ecosystem. What is that one thing you wish shouldn't have or wouldn't have changed?
I love technology. I have small kids who help me with technology, so I'm not advanced. Yeah. So if I have an issue with my phone, they'll fix it for me. So I'm not, from that point of view, driven by discovering new things, but I've always embraced what technology brings and the changes. So I've never been a traditionalist in a sense of you can't change the game like this, or that the game is no longer what we used to play. I love the fact that it's changed and have been through that whole transition. So that's been pretty amazing. I think there's nothing about the game. So as a coach now, I think that the sad thing for me from a reality is that there's just no downtime for people in the system, and it's important. Work-life balance is really, it's an important part of what we see. I mean, there's mental health issues away in corporate environment, in sporting environment, and not just in cricket. So players are under a lot of pressure. It's a great opportunity from a business perspective, or setting themselves up for a good life through the salaries and the endorsements that they can earn. So so you can't take one without the other. You have to put in all that work, and you have to be playing 10 months of the year if you want both salaries, endorsements, and success. And it was less about the fame, but it's more about, so I'm good at this, and then, like I did it at age 34, I had to start again somewhere. I had to join the bank. There was no money that I'd saved that was going to then set me up for life. And I just think that that's the only thing, is that there's more and more, and then it was T20, now it's T10, and it's gone global. So it's great because I worked in Sweden. We had T10 and T20 cricket in Sweden. The team was touring to Spain, places that you wouldn't think of where cricket's been played, in Germany and Finland and Norway. And for my players in the Swedish team, it was a massive thing. So, really excited that the format has changed. Because there's no ways, they were all working full time. There's no ways they could have played in a 50-over match, or maybe on the odd weekend. But the leagues that were taking place in the evenings and allowing them to play. So the way that the game has changed, I'm all for it. I'm grateful. I'm still involved as a coach, but I see the players, and I see they come from World Cup to T20 to another format of a World Cup to international tours. And during those years of the pandemic, where it was in a biosecure bubble, I think it made it where us as coaches just realized how much a player needs support, because generally it's your family that offers that. But in a bio bubble, most of the players were without their families or their friends or close friends. So we had to become more than just a coach. I mean, a mentor. You had to really be somebody there for the players to listen, because communication is what I'm doing now. It's bad communication, just talking, but good communication is the ability to listen, and that's in corporate sport environment, and that's certainly highlighted to us what the players were going through, and often you hide it because you go to your family. Whereas during those years of the pandemics, tournaments that the guys were having, it made us realize that wow, they are going through a lot emotionally and mentally.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm definitely want to talk more in depth with you about the mental side of it because that's, I feel, very underrated. But tell me, in cricket in general, is there any underrated aspect of cricket which deserves more attention than what other things get into limelight?
Yeah, I think what is underrated is overwork. You know, in India, because there are so many cricket players trying to reach, obviously IPL is a stepping stone towards India, playing for the Indian team, is that when we get players together, they aren't constantly working. I mean, constantly working. And it's not because the coaches are lazy. I mean, we have a team of coaches. So we have, you know, we've almost had to split practices because we've got a big group of big squad of players. And because Justin Langer had spoken about, you know, be ready as opposed to get ready, we've got to devote as much attention to the players on the fringes, or not even on the fringe, because, you know, you can only have sort of 16 or 18 players down at the ground. You've got 8 players, sometimes you leave behind when you fly away. So we have a coaching staff that then looks after those players. So it's almost, you know, the desperation from a young Indian player, especially, you know, they know that if there's an auction coming up, a mega auction coming up, if they don't play, they don't get noticed. If they don't play in their state, they might not get noticed. So there's this desperation to get in and be seen by people and be seen by the coaches. And often and it's not a negative thing because, you know, without the work, but you see how much these kids, these youngsters practice, and you kind of go, okay, so there needs to be a line drawn where practicing for the sake of practicing is, you know, because as a fielding coach, it's now the hottest time of the year we're coming into, still a month to go, and it's going to get even hotter. And the players are practicing for sort of 3 hours at a time. Now, fielding is high intensity, and so from my perspective was, you know, it's perfect practice, not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. And that can be 5 minutes. If you've got it right, why belabor the point? Get it right, move on to the next thing. So these guys will hit 1,000 cricket balls, or they'll bowl 1,000. They'll want to take 1,000 catches, just so that they can be seen by the coaches to have a great work. And they all have, to get to this level, we know they've got great work ethic. It's not by luck or chance.
Yeah.
They've worked really hard to get there. So I think it's an understanding of that. There is that balance, you know, of you actually need to be fresh mentally and physically by almost saying, no, okay, so this afternoon, I'm going to hit 10 balls and that'll be enough. Because in the game, I might just fade 10 balls. That might be the only chance that I get to hit 3 4s and a 6. But I hit 1,000 balls at practice, you know, just so I can hit those 10. Yeah. Some days you almost got to undervalue time out at practice and value more, okay, how can I refresh myself? That opportunity comes, I am ready.
Tell me, all of this is also an outcome of the environment and situation, right? Like you said, there's awful lot more money involved in cricket right now what it was earlier. Even during your days, money was involved, but right now the multiple is much more than what perhaps in other sports could be.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later, how it could perhaps affect other sports participation. But do you think that too much of flow of money perhaps impacts or affects the longevity or sanity of the game?
Well, I suppose, you know, just by the sheer number of tournaments in, you know, from North America to Australia and everywhere else in between where they play cricket. I mean, that's opposite ends of the universe, I suppose, or of the globe. And unless you go around the back, I suppose it's a bit shorter. But there's cricket played everywhere and at all times of the year. So, you know, I think from a point of view, and in all different formats. Because when there was Test cricket in 50 overs, you know, it was quite easy to kind of draw a line and find space. Cricket is a business, you know, and baseball will play as many, in one format, will play as many games in a season, or if not many. Basketball will be the same, and the players are putting in as many work hours. So it has become a business. I don't think there's too much money in the game. It's a career that not many people get the opportunity to actually turn into a career. But that's the same in a corporate environment. Not everybody's going to become C-suite executives. You know, you're going to work for an organization possibly for your entire working life, and that's all you achieve, and that's all you get, and that's actually maybe provided something for your family in the future. So not everybody is going to get just through hard work to the next level. So, you know, I think from a commercial point of view, having seen how cricket has become big business, I'm still all for it. You know, I'm not saying, well, the game is now, people are taking advantage, because every country where they play cricket is springing up a new league and trying to attract players to it. We've done that in South Africa with the SA20, 2 years now, the last 2 seasons. But we've been a cricket country that has been trying to get it going for 10 years, in international level competition, domestically. But it doesn't just happen that easily. So if you get it right and it is commercially viable, cricket it is a sport, for sure. The essence is still there as a sport, but it is business for people who run it and for people who participate in it. So I'm not anti that in any way at this stage.
Yeah. You've traveled around the world during your playing days and even now as a coach, which means you have seen human behavior evolve over the past 15 odd years. How much of that human behavior, what you have seen, is still relevant in terms of spectators watching the sport, people critiquing the sport, people passionate and love about the sport? How much of that is still relevant today?
Well, I suppose the huge difference is in the last sort of 10, 15 years as a cricket player now, and now somebody who's working as a coach, and the sort of the influx of what social media brings to the game is so different, because you could actually remove yourself from cricket. Difficult in India because generally, if you're staying in a hotel, all the staff are keen cricket lovers. And if you had laundry from the day's play, they would never leave it in your room if you were at practice. They would wait for you to come back, knock on the door so they can talk to you, have a picture.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even a picture then. It was always an autograph. No one had mobile phones that easily accessible, but it was an autograph or maybe a ticket for the next game or the next day's play. So you had that opportunity. Plus, if you had a busy year, it was maybe you played cricket in England in county cricket, which in India wasn't relevant because no one was really playing county cricket. But South Africa, there was an opportunity. So you were one of the few people that were a full-time cricketer playing state cricket or international cricket and then maybe playing in the UK. So for the rest of us, we had, the fact that I could play state hockey, at a high level in my days or my months away from cricket, I think is an indication of how much downtime you actually had, because I had to stayed fit luckily, but get back into my hockey skills for the season. So that changed now, and almost, the fan following, the support is a big part of the business side of cricket, because without the ticket sales, without the following of the fans, players are very aware of it, that they not have to keep fans happy, but it's a big part of today's game. And social media gives those fans access to the players and the teams. And it's quite difficult as a cricket player to kind of remove yourself from what's been said on social media. I've reacted once or twice and been upset, taken things personally. And I'm quite a chilled individual, and I'm not massive on social media from an activity point of view. Obviously during the season is a different story because, I don't take pictures very well. But now you've got a whole social media team and they collab and they tag, and so you're busy, but to remove yourself out of what's been said sometimes is very, very difficult, and people feel justified. The knowledgeable cricket people in India, they're everywhere. But before you could keep away from them. If you didn't want to interact with people, you didn't have to go out. Now they are in your room, at all times of the day and night.
Yeah.
So that has changed, and people's behavior on social media, and this is generalizing, it's probably more bad than good. That it's a tool that certainly it allows players to get endorsements, and again from a commercial side it can be utilized. So you got to take the good with the bad. If you're saying, well, commercial, you can't say these things on social media, or how can you say that? Then be off it. Don't be on it. And then it's not a stream of income for a certain player. Some of the guys are not on social media.
Yeah.
Justin Langer as a head, he's not on social media.
Yeah.
Fair enough. He wants peace and quiet.
Yeah.
If it doesn't bring any commercial, that's free. Doesn't want that revenue stream. So they are sort of, that's the one big change from what I've really seen, is that the fan following was always there at the ground, and then you were removed from it. Now it's with you the whole time.
Talking about Justin Langer, post-retirement, he asked you, what have you learned from India? And you said India has not only taught you how to seize the moment, but also embrace the moment. What do you mean by that? And how is that any different from other cultures?
Well, I think as what it has taught me, because as an international player or sort of a high performance athlete, sports person, it's sometimes those small moments that change me running and diving into the stumps. That wasn't seize the day. So carpe diem, and it's kind of those moments where it turns your career and but often that's quite an aggressive sort of mindset where you've got to impose yourself on the opposition. Well, now's the time. You see the gap and you take it. Where from my perspective as someone who visited India as a cricket player and now as a coach, as a cricket player you could remove, as I said, you could remove yourself. No social media. You didn't leave the hotel because you wanted to get away from the game. If you walked out into the streets, you'd get surrounded and not hassled, but just people not wanting to leave you. So as a coach now, I get out. I mean, I ride a bike in India. I get out and see as much of the country, but also understanding that I grew up in apartheid era South Africa, where I had white privilege, and all the people that I dealt with looked like me, spoke like me, thought the same as me for so long, and the diversity in South Africa was never embraced. It was sort of regulated or relegated to the sideline. So that's what I love about, I talk about embracing the moment as opposed to seizing the moment.
Because often chaos, right?
Well, it is chaos, and some of it because he sees me riding the bike next to the team bus, and he goes, "How on earth?" He says, "I actually can't look at you on the road next to us because I think you're going to get wiped out. How do you even get from the hotel to practice safely?" I ride back and I just said, that was the thing that India taught me, because as Westerners or somebody this is my space on the road. We have road rage in South Africa and Australia, where people, that if you honk a horn, it's aggressive. Get out of my way, or what are you doing? Cutting across, lane discipline. I mean, what is lane discipline in India? It's not even something that people even think about. But it was an understanding from my perspective of your own personal and private space, which in India there's very little of. And people accept that, and they just go with it. You stand on a crowded bus, you sit, people are right next to you. There are crowds and crowds of people, lakhs of people trying to get the same place that you are trying to go to. And if you fight that, it's just going to be a very frustrating day. So that embracing whatever, no expectation basically. Whatever happens, it's good for me.
Just go with the flow.
And that was important, because when you seize the day, often you have goals, and which is great to have goals, but sometimes it's on a path that the door's closed for a reason. We keep banging down that door and wondering why it's not opening. Whereas maybe the path that you're supposed to be on, the door is open over there, but you're not looking on because you're seizing this day or seizing this moment, where the path that you should be on, that is, where you're destined to do great things, is that path. So if you embrace what's happening around you, you're often guided in the particular direction that you should be going.
No, thank you for redefining what chaos is for Indians, because a lot of people not from India, foreigners who come to India, they they are dreaded by the fact that it's too chaotic for them and they can't handle it more. But that's a very refreshing way of putting it out, that just to embrace it. I want to go back to two people I believe have played a very important part in your life, Mike Proctor and Bob Woolmer. What have you learned from them, which is now helping you as a coach in your current avatar?
Well, it was interesting because Mike Proctor was a cricket player in South Africa that during the years of apartheid, he literally only got 6 test matches. So at the start of his career, we were then banned from international sport. So he came back as the first coach for South Africa and at the 1992 World Cup. And he was an aggressive all-rounder that kind of bowled off the wrong foot, hit the ball, smashed the ball out the ground. So he was quite, he wasn't your sort of usual cricket player where technique was important. I mean, he bowled off the wrong foot, firstly. So, I think he also showed me that you don't have to be technically correct to be successful. I mean, you can be, not that I was a maverick, but he was kind of a maverick and a very successful one. In the days of where you had people accumulating runs and he would just look to hit boundaries and sixes. And he was strong and powerful and could do that. So I think the lessons from him was kind of playing to your strengths. If you built this way, do it that way. And with Bob Woolmer, that was again reinforced because Bob was the first sort of student of the game that I come across as a coach. And whereas Mike Proctor wasn't studying anything, was just see the ball, hit it, or just be yourself on the field and the right things will invariably happen. There's no guarantee. But Bob was a real student of every sport. He played hockey, he coached hockey in South Africa, he had moved across to South Africa, played cricket for England, which is very traditional. From that sense, he would even just talk about outcome at the end of sort of a lunch session in playing Test cricket, and I was just mud from knees, sliding, diving on my shirt. And he would say, geez, Jonty, we wouldn't even get to the lunch session playing for the England team. When we dived or put our knee down to stop the ball and it got dirty, we were told to get off the field for an over, come back with clean clothing. So Bob was somebody who, he really embraced technology. So we were the first team that had a laptop available for us. And Bob was a keen golfer, and he was utilizing it to compare his swing to Tiger Woods, because Tiger Woods had brought out a software that you could film yourself and compare on a split screen. So for us, not playing Sri Lanka a great deal, having, in South Africa, pace and bounce, so spin was our weakness for us. And he just said, guys, we don't play enough against the Sri Lankans. So if Murali is bowling the dusra or his regular delivery, this is the difference in his wrist position. So it's too late if you're seeing it as the ball's coming in a test match, because then you're not sure. And he would just, so without practicing physically against the ball, you could just, sort of muscle memory. Okay, that's the one that's coming in, that's the one that's going away. And Bob brought that on. I mean, I still remember Wasim Akram. We toured Pakistan then in about 96, 97 when Bob had taken over. And he's going, what are you guys doing? I mean, cricket's played out there. It's not played on a laptop. So it was quite interesting. And Bob embraced technology from that point of view. He also was somebody who, from encouragement to do things differently. I mean, I was struggling. I got dropped from the test team in that period when Bob first came in. He said, Jonty, you're a hockey player. You pull well, you cut well, but your cover drives are a problem. So in test cricket, 3 slips in a gully, you're going to get out. But in one-day cricket, with your speed, if you outside edge and you come back for 2, it's very difficult, because there wasn't power play cricket. The batters were not hitting the ball out the ground easily. We were hitting the ball on the ground running hard. So I was still a good one-day player, but in test cricket, I had to change my technique. And Bob identified that. But he was also then saying, if your technique doesn't allow you to hit the ball over extra cover, why don't you reverse sweep the ball? Because you're low to the ground. As a hockey player, that's kind of a natural movement to flow it, when you're going over top of the ball. So reverse sweep the ball. So he wasn't somebody who said, you got to fix this. As test cricket, you have to fix it. But for one-day cricket, you can utilize the strengths that you have. So Bob just, Mike was great. Mike Proctor was great in that he just said, okay, play to your strengths. And Bob reinforced that, but said utilize the technology that you have to make yourself a better player. So without trying to change who you are, fix the small mistakes, but rather focus on your areas of, Yeah. And it works in a corporate environment, playing to your strengths, allowing people to work on areas that they're passionate about. Because if you're good at something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're passionate about it. I'm passionate about fielding. I'm decent at batting, but I wasn't passionate about it. But fielding, I could field all day, every day. I mean, if I could bat all day, every day, I'd love it. But my average obviously indicated that I didn't bat all day, every day.
Yeah.
But fielding 90 overs in a test match, I would run from ball 1. The Australians would have like this little kitty of saying, okay, what over in the day do you think Jonty's going to stop running? Because they felt I was like that wind-up toy. Everybody can be energetic in the first hour of play or the first half an hour. But then after lunch, you've all eaten, you slow down. And I would just keep going. 90 overs of the day. That's 6 hours of running around, fetching hats and caps and ball on the other side of the field. So, I had that energy in me, and was a strength that was happy to utilize.
No, I see where that's been really put in work, because you are one of the very first players who had won man of the match because of fielding, right? Mostly cricket matches, man of the match is given for either a batsman or a bowler, and fielder basically goes unnoticed. And you were one of the very few people early on who got that attention and came in the limelight. But I want to also, put this on a spot and ask you, you said people who play on the strength. Any Indian players you could think about who perhaps not technically gifted, but really, came in and played their strengths?
MS Dhoni. I mean, he's somebody who, as a wicketkeeper, he's not, he does things totally different. He's, obviously emotionally, mentally, he's the calmest guy. He's a well-planned and thought-out captain. He's got strategies that he sticks to. He keeps it really simple. That communication. So there's so many aspects of him that are amazing as a cricket player. But I think the one, if you look at his batting technique, he's very powerful. So his legs are really strong. He was so quick between the wickets, still is at over 40. So pretty amazing. But the helicopter shot that everybody else has copied, because it was so interesting when I first started coaching at the IPL, 2009, so it was year 2. Sachin obviously was massive, and every youngster that we worked with, not only in Mumbai, but you watch the other teams, all the Indian players, they all looked like Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, and he had the perfect technique, so really hard to get that right. He just he practiced meticulously, depending on the opposition he was playing. Where someone like Dhoni, he hasn't changed his technique at all for all the years, the 16 seasons that he's played here, whether it's international or IPL. And it's been incredible. The 2007 World Cup that they came and won the T20, the inaugural T20 World Cup. And he's played the same kind of cricket, which at that stage, everyone kind of looked at and going, what is this guy doing? He's muscling the ball out the ground. Surely you can't just do that and get away with it. And he has. He's done it. Somebody who is not technically correct, but if you look at baseball and you see the sort of transfer of power, he uses from the ground up. He's obviously strong upper body, but his legs and his base is also really, really strong. And he's somebody who has utilized his strengths without going, okay, I've got to change it. Technically, I'm not correct, so I've got to change this. He stayed with what he's good at, and he's been really successful. No matter the plans against him, now he hasn't got out. We're trying to get him out. Yeah. He only comes in sometimes for 3 balls if we're lucky, but you still cannot get the guy out. No matter how his technique doesn't look like it comes out of a textbook. He's someone he's almost written a new chapter on finishing in T20 cricket or 50-over cricket.
Yeah, let's talk about your finishing. When you finish your professional cricketing career, you adopted a new purpose to life, got into things which rarely cricket or perhaps any other sportsman could do, which is very diverse and varied. You got into adventure sports. You wrote a travel book. You're doing a lot of conversations with leaders around. How are you what's their toolkit in finding this new purpose in life? How do you explore, and what's the process like?
I think, I'm obviously somebody who's prepared to take a little bit of risk, and whether it's mountain biking for me was something that I've stopped running. So when I've retired, and it's probably my biggest regret because my calves I'm 55 nearly, so I've got to understand that they talk about old man's injuries, and calves are one of them. But literally, at the end of my cricket career, I said, okay, I've had enough of running. I'm going to take up sport that's going to keep me fit and healthy, but doesn't have to include running. So mountain biking was one, because cycling on a road, for me, it's a little bit dreary. Not in India. Very exciting in India because there's that flow. It's coming everywhere from you. Yeah. But in South Africa, I really would have to then go, okay, I'm going mountain biking because I've got the strength to get up a hill, but then on the other side, down a mountain is insane. I don't have the technical skills, but wow, I've got lots of enthusiasm. So from that point of view, it's been an interesting road and possibly not a very successful one from a business point of view. I'm having to work because I haven't yet gone, okay, so let me focus all of my attention on this idea. So wellness is something that I talk about comfortably, and I really believe in it. And fitness is such a diverse, it means so many things to so many different things to so many different people. But it's still something that I fully believe in, because we as a family, nutrition for us is massive. My wife's an architect, her father's a doctor. She studied medicine year 1 and then just went, this is not my passion. I'm doing this because of my dad. And she went into architecture, because she is an artist. She's also a yoga teacher. So for her, nutrition, and this is in the days where, if you do something slightly alternative, you're kind of seen as a hippie in South Africa. And she just went, hold on, prevention is way better than cure. And you actually can, through good nutrition, you can look after yourself. So doing yoga was one, but it's no good exercising, but you're fueling yourself with processed rubbish. That's not helping you. In fact, it's hindering what you're trying to achieve. So, anything that I've been involved in, I get excited about, and maybe that, and maybe also I haven't grown up yet. That's a bit of a problem, because I should have focused on one thing, possibly, and gone, okay, this is something I'm going to back and I believe in, and I'm going to put all my energy into it. As a coach, I'm still involved. I'm passionate about cricket, and not just playing, but obviously coaching, and not just at IPL. I'll work at academies, Sri Lanka, India, in Nepal. I'll go because I love the game and I love teaching. Maybe it's my parents' fault. So I love still being involved. And I think if I had one self-criticism, that I have young kids growing up, so I should be thinking more longer term, possibly. But just the opportunities that come up, and not to be, just to be a part of, not involved or the main part of, but just to have a small taste of, has been so exciting. And it's just incredible, because a lot of what we talk about, we are all connected, and health and wellness is obviously something that in every country, in every part of the world, the pandemic highlighted how badly we are looking after our health. And the crazy thing is that it starts with us. So we have to educate ourselves. We have to make the sacrifices. Otherwise, we can't complain. And going to a doctor, taking a tablet, for us, it's not something that we believe in. So getting all these opportunities, being exposed to these so many amazing people, has possibly distracted me, because I would rather do 1,000 things. And that was the amazing thing about cricket, is that you got to meet amazing people. People wanted to meet you. In South Africa, Australia, wherever you were, you had the opportunity to open doors. And now it's with amazing people doing incredible things in India, mainly in India. And we as cricket players who have a platform, we talk about making a difference. I think that's been, for me, the best thing and the worst thing about what I do after cricket is that I get to meet these people who actually are making a difference. And I just, I want to spend time here and give energy. At the end of the day, my wife's going, but, what are we building for us? So yes, so wellness is something, I do leadership and corporate talks. And a lot of it is, my focus has gone from, because you obviously brought into increased productivity of the employee by inspiring and motivating them. And you kind of go, well, I can give them words, but in a week's time, they're going to crash and burn. And it's not because of the words that I've spoken, it's just because of the lack of health in corporate India. So, everyone's talking about health and wellness, but it's, again, the engagement of people and staying in it. I mean, you're a runner, so you know about staying the distance. For a lot of us, and I'm supposed to be somebody who understands the need of, I'll get into something and then I'll get distracted very, very easily. But fortunately, my distractions are also quite healthy. But it's not bringing me to an area where I can go, okay, so this is what I need to focus on, because this is for not only myself, it's for my family going forward, because at the end of my cricketing career, I had to work for a bank because there wasn't IPL, there wasn't massive salaries. So it was exciting, and it still is exciting. And maybe that excitement is something that hasn't worn off me, just meeting so many amazing people who are doing amazing things. So I do get distracted, and that when I was batting was evident. I'll get to 20 or 30 and be distracted by thinking, okay, the next ball I'm going to hook or pull or cut, and it wasn't a ball to hook or pull or cut, and I'll get out. So that distraction has been a part of the Jonty persona for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's very difficult to know that, okay, I can focus on just one area.
Yeah, I can't imagine seeing you all through the 90s, what you would be if you were not still doing, anything in wellness or fitness, because you were known for agility, you were known for speed, and you've often spoken about functional fitness. Like, what does functional fitness mean to you?
Well, it's just, at this age now, functional fitness, and it's just mobility, really. So functional fitness was because I had all the other sports that I was playing. So we had the cardio, so we had the basic, because when Kepler Wessels took over South Africa, he just said, we have no international experience, none of us. We played 3 one-day matches against India, we lost the series 2-1, straight to the World Cup. But he said, there's 2 areas we can be the best team in the world. One, we can be the fittest team, and we be the best fielding team. So it wasn't just, okay, Jonty, you be the fielding star. It was we as a team. And that was like music to my ears. I was a hockey player, I was fit. I was someone who loved fielding already, not, oh, okay, so now I must be a good fielder because the captain wants. I loved fielding. And that's, in fact, that's the essence of being a good fielder. Because if you want the ball to come to you and you're expecting every ball to come, I didn't have faster reflexes or anticipation. Anticipation I had. Anticipation was just being ready before the ball was hit, because I wanted the ball to come. So from that point of view, I mean, having the likes of Kepler, being around an environment where fitness and health was a part of the team strategy to give us an advantage, because we had so few areas that we were better than other sides. And it's been an adventure and a journey that started then, and it's certainly something where I want to spend more time going forward.
What is this new fascination with ice baths?
Well, in Cape Town, we have the Atlantic Ocean, which is fairly cold. So in winter, that'll drop to 12 degrees. And we have these beautiful ocean pools that are natural rock pools. And Wim Hof, breathing techniques sort of came into South Africa 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm not someone who sits still very well. So I'm a bit fidgety. And I can't sit and do the breath work. Whereas for my wife, that was quite easy. She obviously did a lot of meditation.
She's a yoga teacher.
Yoga teacher. Vedanta philosophy. But for her, a lot of the sort of retreats that she would go on, meditation was a big part of it. Fasting, just kind of taking yourself out of your immediate environment and just stilling the mind. And for me, that's very, very difficult. So sitting in a cold pool where I could swim, I would happily swim, go under, and do 20 minutes of swimming, whereas the first 2 minutes, because that was sort of Wim Hof's techniques, were the breath work would get you over that initial sort of flight. And for me, the swimming, the movement was what got me beyond that, because then after 2 minutes, your body's numb anyway, so it doesn't feel cold. It looks cold. And the ice bath has just been a continuation of that. So when we were in Sweden, very easy. You open the faucet, the cold shower is headache ice cold. Yeah. And Swedes are very much into sauna, cold water, and in cold and then in the hot. So easy for us to transition. And now, obviously, in an IPL environment, in a hotel, it's not that easily available. It's a big part of recovery for players. Yeah. Post-practice, there's always an ice bath available, but it's now become a part of my daily routine. I mean, I actually ice bath twice a day. Wow. And it, I can't tell you that this is different compared to that, because our lifestyle is not a massive change. So it's a big thing for me is that being in a hotel in India is quite tough, because it's difficult to get outside to exercise. It gets really, really hot. I'm not a massive gym goer, which I do at the IPL train in the gym. And again, a lot of it is around the mobility. I also, because my wife's a yoga teacher and I travel away, so her yoga is immaculate. So if I come back after 2 days on the road, the last thing I feel like doing is, even though it's your own practice, teachers always tell you that, you've kind of got this perfect posture next to you. And my downward dog looks like a plank. I mean, I'm such less of mobility in my hamstrings, my calves, and my back than my wife. So for me, I'd rather do a 15-minute lower back or mobility yoga stretch, and I'll do it every day, because then I'll do it every day. And the mobility is so important. So when I first got to Lucknow, it was a case of, it's actually cool in the mornings. The temperature was quite cold. So I'd get outside, get a bit of sunlight, and science is telling you good ways to start the day. And from a health and wellness, again, it was less about the activity in the gym, running on a treadmill. It was more about just walking. So I start the day just walking, get in the swimming pool, do some mobility in the pool. Because at 54, 55, where I'm lacking is that mobility. Sitting in a chair, sitting on an aeroplane, my lower back does get stiff, because I don't do things. I'd rather go for a surf after I've taken the kids to school in Goa. And my wife's saying, come do yoga, let's self-practice. No, I'm not going to do it today. So just doing that for 15 minutes, because that consistency is what gets you kind of to the next level. So if you set it out and it's too hard, I started, online, you can do anything and it's for free. 45-minute yoga class, I'll get into 10 minutes, okay, I've had enough of this. But a 15-minute mobility that I'm doing with myself, and it's all yoga poses anyway. Yeah. And I do it every day, and I miss it. The same with the ice bath. We travel with an ice bath. If there's no ice bath available, we have physios, masseurs, they set up an ice bath in the physio room in the hotel. And it's become a part of the team. There's 4 or 5 players, there's 3 or 4 coaches now who are doing it on a daily basis.
What is your toolkit right now for mental health, and how much of that you are also exposing it to the players you are coaching? Sure.
I think from a time away from the game is obviously very important from a mental health, which is not possible anymore. And as I've never been someone who's meditated a great deal, and I've seen my wife, the benefits of meditation, now with busy traveling and not fitting in meditation into her routine, seeing how much that's affected her. It's underscored or underlined the importance of just being able to quieten your mind from a mental health perspective. And what I've started doing now is started doing some breath work. And again, with the goal in how do I take it into a corporate environment where you don't have to leave and go to a gym, or you have to leave and go to outside and sit. You can be at your desk and literally in 5 minutes with breath work, you can change what's going on inside your system, and especially what's going on inside your mind. So as I said before, with the Wim Hof, I was swimming in the cold water not because I could then sit still and calm myself. I was always about mobility, and now having worked with somebody who is a breath work specialist And that is something from a mental health point of view, just trying to understand that, again, it doesn't require you to have 3 months away from the game. If you do small things every day to make yourself stronger mentally and physically, you know, and I've seen it now, you know, you really, the healthy choice has to be the easy choice, because if it's not available here and now and doesn't require it, it's not going to get done.
Yeah.
And mental health is as important. And we always used to talk about nutrition. If you're doing exercise and all the mobility and things like that, if you're not fueling yourself, it's not going to help. But now we've seen with sleep. So sleep for me is a big part of it. In India, it's so difficult because people are eating later. Then obviously I haven't watched half of the matches live in the IPL because the television's on. You know, because we don't have a television at home, it's too easy to turn the TV on. And also just for company, because it's people talking. But for me, going to sleep is a big part of mental health. So going to sleep in time, not having my phone. So I charge, in South Africa or in Goa, we charge the phone in different rooms. So not next to the bed, and try and put that away. So mental health, it's not just about, okay, I need to go speak to somebody about getting my issues sorted out. It's about how do I prime my brain or allow myself to be calm and still in the chaos that's going on, because you're not going to escape it. As I say,
Yeah.
No player has 3 months to get away from the game. But within that, how can you create the stillness within a chaotic environment just for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but do it on a daily basis? So breath work has definitely been something and sleep, 2 areas that I'm certainly trying to focus on. A few of the players have come down. We've spoken about breath work. They're already involved with that because it's not a new concept, and we know how it's all connected. So I think that the mental health side is still something you do physically. I mean, sleep, going to bed early is not, but breath work is something that you can do physically that will benefit your mental health.
But what are you telling young athletes, like we were talking, right? I mean, it's a very different environment right now. A lot of money involved. People want their attention. They want more attention to themselves. And this aspect about distraction, anxiety, stress, what do you tell them in a very practical way which they could apply and perhaps be of help to them?
Well, what I have tried to explain is that if you can't handle the bad news, don't read the good news. Because if you have a great game and you do well, the first thing you do, and now it used to be in my day, newspaper. So you would open the door, newspapers outside, you would read the back page. Jonty Rhodes scored runs or took a great catch, turned the game around. But then the same journalist a week later, when you haven't scored runs consecutively, is saying, this guy is in the team, but he's not producing the good. You get all upset. So that's always, and again, because social media, and it comes from then at least there was a cricket journalist who has studied the game for a long time, and they were almost a part of the roadshow. So you saw them on a daily basis, week in and week out. In the different countries, you would see the same people around the game. Now it's everybody and anybody who has an opinion about the game has access to you and will write great stuff about you, will heap praise on you when you're doing well. But the same people are going to cut you down when you're not. So that's always my first piece of advice to any of the young players, that if you can't handle the bad news, don't read the good stuff, because that is very difficult. So easy for us to kind of, when we're successful, love what's being said, but then when it's negative or criticism, not enjoy the fact that it's coming our way. So that's, if you can get beyond that, that's certainly a step to having a healthy mental approach to your cricketing career.
Has the vibe around dressing room changed a lot from your years of playing and now what you see as a coach?
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, now the dressing room is pretty much an extension of the office. So it's, you clock in, you clock out, and you want to get back to the hotel, which is in a way quite sad, because you've got so many different cultures within a room and so many different experiences. And we as cricket players, at the end of the day, it was our classroom. So that was an extension of the field, was the dressing room. So you would get to the game, because we were always learning. We had never been to England before, we'd never been to Sri Lanka, we'd never gone on tour of the Caribbean. And the best place to discuss was kind of, it happened in the day, and let's talk about it as teammates. What did you do? How did you see that? Or how did you read the flipper? What was going on? And it was an extension of the day's play. Whereas now the dressing room is kind of clock in and clock out. So it's part of work. So the sooner you leave work, you can get back to your own environment. Where it was such a learning place for us in that sort of pre-T20 career, where you had months off away from the game. You didn't mind spending that extra time with teammates, and you as a player didn't play as much cricket, so you needed to upskill yourself. That conversation was a part of that upskilling yourself, technically and also emotionally, becoming a better player through conversation, and sometimes with the opposition. We would often go into the Australians, we hated each other on the field, but we would sit and mutually respect, sit down in the dressing room afterwards and have a chat before heading off to different hotels or same hotels. So that has been lost in the game, because it's definitely a part of the clock in and clock out. But in saying that, you have to clock out because you've got to go back and get recovery. Ice bath at the ground is available. Masseuse back at the hotel, physiotherapy. So there's still work from a recovery point of view that has to take place. So the longer you spend in the dressing room, the longer that recovery is put off. So dressing room is kind of been a part of the clocking in and clocking out. And it's sad because you are rushed. It is a busy day anyway, but there's so many areas that you can learn, and so many young players in this environment wanting and desperate to learn, and so many different cultures and upbringings around the same game, and that we just perceive so differently. You don't have to take it all on, but it's great to hear it from a different perspective.
Any stories you could share where you've been part of the era where the likes of Sachin Tendulkar, Brian Lara, Shane Warne, something you guys had a conversation off dressing room across our dining table, but that really helped you to go back and win against them?
No, not really. Because the interesting thing was, unless you specifically went in, so our plan was to go and learn about other teams. So the Australians weren't going to give us insights, and that's the one thing that the IPL has done. It's brought teammates, international teammates, into your dressing room, and you've got to play against them. We're not sure if they give you everything, but there's so much cricket these days, and with technology, you can analyze yourself anyway. But initially with the IPL, you almost had to open up. So in our playing career, if we ever got together, it was definitely not talk about cricket. So there's never a sort of a nugget that you talk out, he has a weakness I can exploit, or Sachin had said, when you're at backward point, this irritated me. So you never really discuss, which is, I think, why the friendships have been so refreshing and have lasted so long, is because it's something outside cricket, which is, cricket is something, you have your business, and then you leave your teammates and everything in your position behind, and you go away. Whereas the friendship side were more of, you can talk about other aspects than just about the game.
You spoke about dressing room being an office. An extension of an office is, in the IPL, there's a management, there's a team owner, there's a lot of responsibility and expectation from you as a coach that team should perform and they should win. And I was watching recently, there was a match, I think with Chennai, where one of the players dropped a catch and you ran out from the dugout all to him and you were just to cheer him. How hard it is not to pass on the pressure which you have to the players, because there's always an expectation.
It is difficult, I must say. I've always enjoyed my role as a fielding coach, because it kind of feels like sheltered employment. The spotlight is on, and I think the whole time when some of the players have done some brilliant work, people, fielding coach is Jonty, of course, but I never take the credit, because I then also don't take the blame if somebody drops a catch. Because I'll prepare the players as much as possible, but that's the hard thing about a coach, is that once the game starts, they walk on the field, it's kind of them. So your work has been done. And you're not going to impact or influence what's going to happen. Hopefully you've coached, and mistakes are made. But the key there for me was, I've dropped catches, and I was supposedly the best fielder in the world. I've put catches down. And there's a young guy in our setup who has to bowl. He hasn't bowled yet. So he's in Chennai, and the whole stadium is yellow. The whistles are going crazy. And he's dropped the catch, and he's feeling terrible as it is. In an empty stadium, you're going to feel bad because of your teammates. You've felt like you've let the team down. And he's got an important role as a bowler. He hasn't bowled a single ball yet, and he's going to have to bowl in the power play, which is a tough job. And if he sits there thinking, and that's always kind of been my whole, if you don't go, you'll never know. You don't want players standing there thinking, if they drop a catch, Jonty's going to mark them. So don't go for the ball, because it's going to go as a negative in Jonty's book. And it's been my philosophy, and that having that freedom to fail is so important, because then they're not going to go if they're thinking that I can't afford to drop it. So it was an important passage of play, and we didn't have an opportunity to get out and speak to him in the timeout before he bowled. So it wasn't needed for the bowling coach to go tell him just to relax. It was definitely my job just saying it happens, and you've got such a big part to play going forward. Now that's a great thing about fielding is you get another opportunity, or bowling. You bowl a bad ball, you can get the guy out. When you're batting, egg chance and it's done.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a slightly different. But as a young player who feels like he's let the team down, but still has a big role, that can impact his performance.
Sure.
You know, so it wasn't something like I thought, oh, I've got to go and do. But I know as a player I dropped. My head would drop as well if I dropped a catch. Yeah. And I would get Hansi Cronje coming, putting his arm around me saying, Jonty, the team needs you to field, not to bowl. But we needed this kid to come in and bowl at the best of his ability, or bowl to his potential. And if he's worried about what Jonty's thinking, he just needed to know that, you know.
Yeah. No, interestingly, you won the match. Lucknow Super Giants won the match. You know, that moment requires a lot of mindfulness, being involved in that moment, and also a lot of mental resilience, right? Jogging back to your own career, were there any moments you could talk about where the same mental resilience really helped you come back from failure to success? Because I mean, you drop matches, so you drop catches. The team can go all out at a very short time, but you could always turn back. So any particular moments in your cricketing career which you thought really shaped the idea of mental resilience?
Well, I think that it wasn't one moment. I mean, it was being dropped from the test team for 2 years. So between 1996 and 1998, I wasn't playing. So under Bob Woolmer, and Bob was an amazing guy. We had one coach. So now I'm one of 7 coaches. You know, so if players have, but we also have 24 players. So you can't devote the whole practice to one particular player. Bob Woolmer is the only coach. We would have teammates who would throw to you, you know, you wanted extra batting in the nets. Gary Kirsten and I would work together because he didn't bowl and I didn't bowl. So we had extra time to find a space and we would then work on our batting drills together. But going back with Bob Woolmer saying, Jonty, the selectors, he doesn't make the decision. The selection committee left me out of the test team. I went back and he said, this is what you have to fix. And cricket is a game of habit, you know, and habits are hard to make and break. So it doesn't just happen on a week. You know, it has to be, and when you're batting and you're worried about where your hands are, you tend to lose focus of, okay, there's the ball, I've got to hit the ball. I'm more worried about where my hand's going and what are they doing when they're coming through. So when that becomes a habit and you don't think about it, then you're starting on the right. Then you've got to score runs again. So the mental resilience was a 2-year period where I was playing one-day cricket, but I wasn't good enough for test cricket. And I just had 4 years playing test team. And, so being left out of a side and then going back to sort of state cricket and scoring runs heavily, consistently, and then getting reselected. So it wasn't a case of, it was one incident and I overcame it by just knuckling down and going, well, that's, that's the rub of the green, or how the cookie crumbles, and get on with it and soak it up. It was a 2-year period but it was a lot of support. I mean, Hansi Cronje as a captain and as a friend, first and foremost. I mean, we'd grown up together, same age, and played against each other in different school tournaments and competitions, and played together in different age groups. And he just, every time I scored runs, would just call me and say, well played, you know, looking forward to having you back, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. We know you can get back in the setup, and great to see, you know, just, so that encouragement was there. But it wasn't the resilience was, you know, I could have gone, okay, that's the end of my career. Test cricket, there were younger players that were trying in my place, and they weren't that successful. And I toured England in 1998 as a test player and was kind of man of the season, you know, or the series. And as a batter, it was really important, but it wasn't a single moment. It was just a case of like an attrition. And I think it was important. It wasn't just the end goal to get back in. I mean, I wanted to get better, but it wasn't a case, I've got to get better to play test cricket. I was still playing international cricket. I'd still played more test matches than so many amazing players before me of all nationalities, of all sort of colours in South Africa. It wasn't just white players who missed out. It was entire generations of white and non-white players who hadn't got the opportunity. So I wasn't putting myself under pressure. I've got to fix this and then get back in the side. It was just about, just trying to be the best that I could be. So it wasn't a particular moment. But the mental resilience was, okay, it's worth, because it's every day. It's every day just making this a habit, and it was worth it.
What's been the key difference between training Indian cricket players and South African cricket players?
Well, I'm obviously, my expertise is fielding and movement. You know, in India, players don't move so well because they don't play a multitude of sports. So I'm always encouraging, because I can teach somebody to catch a ball, but getting to the ball is so difficult. So a lot of the players, that combination of running and catching, the timing of the jump, of getting your body in a good position to actually catch the ball. You can have the best hands in the world, but if your feet don't take you there, you're not going to catch them. Or you could, you could get the tip of your fingers to the ball because you're too slow, or your change of direction. So South African, Australian, New Zealand, we play rugby, football, hockey. So all those sports with sort of change of directions. I'm always encouraging kids now here in India, play badminton, kick a soccer ball, because it's suddenly, again, it's the awareness. A lot of the boundary work that we do, some of the players, the awareness they have is incredible. You don't practice that specific drill, but you put them under pressure on the boundary that they have to do something that's spectacular. And it is repetition, but it's different every time, because the ball comes at different heights, at different speeds, and they've got to react differently. So for me, the key difference coaching someone from South Africa and coaching a young Indian player to field is the ability to move laterally. They can run forward in straight lines, no problem. You've got to run in as a bowler, you've got to up and down the wickets as a batter, but it's that change of direction which a lot of them struggle with. So if you can't get hands to the ball, difficult to catch.
Who's the closest Jonty Rhodes of India?
That's Jack in the box. So you kind of got to go, okay, what is Jonty Rhodes? So I was seen as this great fielder, but I love fielding. So I think if you look at Jadeja now, when he plays, he caught a catch the other day against us, insane. And I watched the footage again and again and again, because it was at the end of the match, we were winning it comfortably, and he just from nowhere, he was standing still, because you as a coach, you look at the body language or the body position, because that tells you if the player is expecting the ball to come, because if they're upright and not ready, their mind is elsewhere. His mind was elsewhere, and he still had the sort of reflexes and the agility to take a catch, where I think because the game was like 2 overs to go, we needed or 4 overs to go, just a couple of runs, and we were 8 wickets in hand, and it looked like the game, but his just instinctive reaction, insane. But I think the Jonty Rhodes, for me, is somebody who I've always loved watching, was Suresh Raina, because he dives around a bit like me, not going to stop every single ball, but he's throwing himself at the ball. That mantra, if you don't go, you'll never know. And understanding what kids grow up with in India, how they start their cricketing careers on the grounds that they have to throw themselves around on, that for me was always very admirable. And he had the ability to kind of change a game, in the field. Bat and bowl, great batter, and more than useful off-spin bowler, but in the field, taking spectacular stuff and just throwing himself around after the ball, even if he wasn't going to get it, he was still.
Yeah, so both of them have not been part of your coaching team, so I'm sure they have spent a lot of time on YouTube watching your videos, getting the tricks. I want to talk about Hansi Cronje. Has been a lot meaning to you in your life. What have you learned from Hansi on the field, off the field, which has shaped you as a person beyond cricket?
I think a few things. Obviously he had an incredible career as a captain of South Africa, and the sad thing was that because of the match fixing and the life ban from cricket, he also in the era of pre-IPL, he would have been the ideal all-rounder, bowl a bit, bat, hit the ball out the ground, a great finisher, and also just a great leader of men. And I think what kind of the big things that are the takeaways that I had from my time with Hansi is that, he was a natural leader. So he was a born leader, which is not available to everybody. Yeah. But even that fact, he still grew as a leader. All the books that he had in his study, and I only saw them after he died in plane accident. Gone down to his, my wife and I, we'd gone down to his wife. They hadn't recovered the body yet off the mountain. So my wife was staying with her in their main bed, and I was in the spare room, which was next to his study. And all his books were sportsmen and women, successful sportsmen and women, quotes on leadership, on teamwork, on success. And he was a great after-dinner speaker, and he had sort of 6 or 7 or 8 quotes, and he had no notes, just recite the quotes and how we as a team or how he as a captain would, utilize the same principles, but on a cricketing environment. And he was superb. And a lot of the stuff that, I'd heard him talk about it at functions, because there was always fundraisers and charity events. And the cricket board utilized him because he was so good and the people loved him. And all these quotes were sort of underlined or highlighted, and I obviously couldn't sleep. It was quite an emotional time. The 4 days before his funeral as well, we stayed there. And one of the quotes that, and I knew that he was a great leader, because at under 18 level South African schools, they chose Hansi. I was his vice captain. He was the captain of the South African schools team, even though my state team was the most successful and I was the captain. And the convener of selectors was from my school. And he just said, Jonty, if South Africa ever get back, you guys have done really well, you've done a great job, but if South Africa ever gets back to play international cricket, this guy, Hansi, and his team, it was good, but it was from the Free State, Afrikaans-speaking communities. His entire school team was the state team. Literally 11 out of the 12 players were from, so they weren't a strong outfit, very limited pool of players. And the convener of selectors just said, if we ever get back, this guy will captain South Africa. So identified his leadership ability, but he didn't sit on his laurels or just, I'm a born leader. It just comes easy. He grew in that, and all his books were around that. So I think that, again, for me was, yes, my speed is my strength, but I still worked on it. You know, running around, that physicality that I had, the advantage that I had that came naturally, wasn't something that I'll be fine. I don't have to do the extra training, or I can coast. So we would do sprint training, no gym work, just sprints, just getting the cardio. And you know, I wasn't thinking, okay, let me win the last, because it was always 100 sprints, 100 shuttles, and in groups of 10. So 1, 3, 2, 10, then walk through. The next guy would call. And it was never a case of, let me run the last 10 the fastest and be there. I was, you know, if I was dead by the 90th run, I would rather be walking slowly the last 10. And that was such an amazing lesson, you know, from Hansi, and then reinforced through his death, unfortunately, was that he has this guy with all this natural ability and as a leader, but he still grew in it. And he, as an individual, he focused on becoming better in that area.
Has there been any memorable fan moment you've had which has really left a very lasting impression on you, or perhaps an emotional impression?
Yeah, I think, you know, we obviously, as sports stars in South Africa, we reached for a dream, which was a foundation that looked after young children with cancer, especially, and if they had any dreams, you know, to meet people, and at that sort of stage of my career where I sort of burst onto the scene, I was very popular amongst young kids, grandmothers and young children. So I had a very bad school. I had like a schoolboy. They wanted to mother me, you know. I was like, I had this really bad schoolboy haircut, and but young kids they all wanted. I mean, the stylist who cut my hair, he just said, everyone's asking for a Jonty Rhodes haircut, but I had the haircut done in Australia, because up until then my mother cut my hair. I mean, I was a university student staying with my parents at university. My mother just cut my hair. So, you know, first time I ever paid for a haircut. And so obviously a lot of work with young children who were terminally ill. But I think now what's been incredible is that, you know, the work that I do with cricket players with disabilities, or differently able. So, you know, in Lucknow we have, and not all the stadiums have, and it's quite interesting, we have wheelchair access, and we provide seating for people in wheelchairs. And there's the Indian wheelchair team I've become quite close with. So a lot of them are based in Lucknow, and Somjit is the captain, and he literally had to write the rules, because his friends were up until 10, he could run around with his friends, and then he was then stuck in a wheelchair. So they were all concerned about hurting him, so even though he loved the game, he couldn't play. So he literally eventually found enough people to start playing, but they had to adapt the rules. So they've drawn up rules, and now I get to spend time with these guys. I went down to practice, Justin and I, we put ourselves in a chair, and you know, so you have these sort of fan moments, because he's a fan of who I am, but he's a fan of cricket, but he's not just someone who sat on the outside and watched and applauded. You know, he's got involved, and again, he's made a difference. So I think that for me is very impactful on, you know, on my existence, that I can be an inspiration to somebody who I see as an inspiration to so many other people. So, so not particular fan moments where you've kind of, you know, you feel like you've made a massive difference, but
sure,
what you see, how you have inspired people, but what you've done has given them something to go on with, and they've made a difference, which is really amazing.
That's beautiful. You know, impact, and impact also means not just one sport, you know, sports as a culture. I want to talk about South Africa. If you look at the country, roughly around 60 million people. India is close to 1.4 billion people. I don't know how many multiples of that is to South Africa now. South Africa has won close to 89 Olympic medals. India has won 58 Olympic medals in the history. And you've been also a commentator and coach. Now you're on the sidelines. In India, you must have seen that we're just not a billion people, but we're a billion cricket critiques.
Sure.
Right? How do you think as a country we could find a balance to also give enough attention to other sports? Because I'm sure in a billion people there are talent which is more than cricket, and of course we have potential to win more Olympic medals. But what is that we can do as a society to perhaps give more attention and take away some, I don't know, taking away is the right word, but give some more emphasis to other sports and make it an equal playing and participatory sports country?
I think it's going to be difficult to make it equal, that's for sure. There really is such a big focus on cricket. You just need a couple more javelin throwers to win gold, and badminton players to win medals. And I think if you go to South Africa's history, because we obviously have only been back in international arena since 1994, where I think we managed to win a whole bunch of medals when we first came in. But I think India is from a growth path in other sports. I think it's picking up. And I mean, the great thing about India, in my experience, and it might be difficult living here all the time, and you talk about the numbers, but everything is exponential. So the growth might be slow, but when that growth starts happening, that growth happens quickly. So the initial period, I think, of sports outside cricket, winning medals, is slow, but the more people I speak to and I get around India a lot, obviously away from cricket, in people's homes, and I eat dinner, I've got friends, and their kids are doing different things. So it's not just cricket anymore. And it's going to be slow. It'll be slow to start with because it's facilities and a lot of it is mindset. Staying in Goa, I'd have a lot of early morning flights out of Dublin Airport. And on the road, I was driving at sort of 5 o'clock in the morning. There were kids on rollerblades. But there's a good one thing, they've connected Goa really well. So the motorways are really easy to drive north and south because it doesn't seem far, but it takes forever. But there was a section of road that had been recently paved and it was kind of next to the highway. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, there was a whole bunch of parents who had parked their cars to make sure nobody came onto it. And it must have been 20 kids rollerblading, but not partying, like skating at speed, and it's at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's incredible. So that for me was, and in fact, the third time that I passed him, because I had a whole week of going, and I thought, I actually got to stop my car, and I want to just commend the parents and these kids for, so unusual, putting in massive effort in a sport that no one's even talking, you probably even heard about in India. I mean, I went rollerblading, really. I met a couple for dinner last night. Their kids rollerblade. I'm going, come on, really? So it is slow to start with, but the focus is there. I definitely see it. The fact that kabaddi, if I go, and I get the opportunity to go to schools as well that aren't necessarily in the metros, and there's Kho and there's kabaddi, and seeing what Kabaddi League has done televised for the prominence. I mean, I see kabaddi, those are the players I want to coach. They're fast and strong and they move and they kick, and not that I want them to kick the opposition, but just that agility and the mobility that they have and the strength is, you kind of go, man, if I had 11 of those guys in the field, not sure how they could bat, but they would certainly stop anything that comes their way. Yeah. So yes, there's still a massive, and I think cricket's its own worst enemy, the success of cricket. I mean, and it's a great thing because the success of the Indians women's team now means that there's a huge focus on women's cricket in India, which before there wasn't. So yes, I think it's still a massive part of the pie, and the energy and attention from sponsorship, television goes to cricket. But the growth is underlying or underneath in the other sports. And because of the numbers in India, when a spark just needs to ignite that. And when that picks up, I think it'll pick up quickly. So yes, more and more javelin throwers and badminton players. Because it was also, I think for a long time, more about boxing and wrestling. But, shotters, and I think sport in India is really healthy. And I think people are becoming more aware that the importance of kids getting into school, playing some sort of sport. It doesn't have, because cricket is so constricted with regards to space, that there are other sports that you can. That was the same thing the couple I had dinner with last night. The school offers rollerblading because it's a car park. They don't need a ground to be, firstly a large amount of space. So after school, when the car park is clear, there's a space. Kids can rollerblade. Let's use it. Yeah. So I think that attitude we'll see a massive growth in other sports. It's there already. It's very nascent and it's very early stages, but the benefit of the numbers here.
Like you said, we are making progress, but it's slow progress, but it's good progress. We are a few months down from the Paris Olympics, and the last time I checked, out of the 48 people who qualified in individual sports, 21 are women. Yeah. So that's a very good positive sign. So we're making the right strides.
I mean, having my wife as an architect, it's always important that you need that foundation. Yeah. So you can't just jump to the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all connected. So you need a strong foundation. You need a good roof and solid walls and everything else. But you really have to have a strong base to start. Otherwise, it's just not supportive. And I think South Africa has shown, to our detriment, is that we kind of, through the apartheid era, there was still a lot of the government schools, white-only schools, had great facilities, and now we're inclusive, but we're still not giving enough people opportunity. So some of our best sportsmen and women are probably not even accessing sport at this stage in South Africa. So, facilities are the key. So without the facilities and the opportunity to train and practice, it's always going to be tough just to jump ahead and say, okay, we're winning medals in this arena.
Yeah, let's talk about your third identity. Outside of cricket and coaching, you're also a parent, and you talk and you share a lot about what you do with your kids. What has parenting taught about yourself as a person which you didn't know till the time you became parent?
Well, I suppose different ways to discipline children is the first one, because my father's a school principal in the 80s. The school principal had a stick cane, and you could whack boys. And we were all boys' school, and you could give them a hiding if they stepped over the line. So and the same discipline was in our house. So 3 boys, if anybody might, because my father had 600 boys in the day, and if there was tears or the youngest brother was crying, somebody did something, all 3 get a hiding. He had no time for stories and just all get a hiding. So it was a good way for us to try and make peace before it got out of hand. If we were playing cricket in the yard and we missed the ball, or someone hit the ball through a window and it broke, all 3 get a hiding. Not his fault, he did this. So I think from that point of view, for me trying to take away, and not that it involved beating, but the strict discipline, whereas, and that's been my wife, the change with Melanie is that as someone practicing Vedanta philosophy, someone who meditates, someone who does yoga, as an architect, she understands that this is actually the building, or the building process is so important. Yeah. And from day one that India could sit herself, she was feeding herself, yogurt everywhere. So it was so much mess. But my wife was patient enough, just to go, okay, so no domestic staff. We are there in the kitchen, and India's stabbing herself in the eye with a wooden spoon full of yogurt or curd, or whichever country we were in, palak paneer, we were here, and it's a case of just having the patience and allowing the children to learn themselves. Whereas discipline is about me telling them how they should behave, as opposed to, I'm a cricket player. I don't get told you can't do this. I work it out for myself. If I bat like this, I'm going to get out. So I've got to change it myself, and then it's sustainable. So I think that's been kind of the biggest parenting lesson that I've ever had, is that, and then now putting our kids into Montessori school, where it's kind of learning through experience, learning through play. It's not just about the strict discipline, which is what I grew up with and kind of only knew one way. So I'm grateful for sort of Melanie's intervention around that, because you want your children to have a voice. Yeah. Sure, you're the adult, you have to make a decision, but it's empowering your kids to have a say in the house. Again, it's pretty much like leadership. The old style of top-down management. For a company to be agile, everyone talks about agility in an organization. If you've been told what to do by the boss, nothing gets done. If boss is micromanaging, nothing gets done. Yeah. So it's very, it's interesting that the parallels that you can draw between sport and family and life, the same essence throughout. We know it works, but sometimes it's quite hard to delegate that authority or that sort of, take ownership, because I'm a parent, I know better, or I'm the boss, I know better, or I'm the coach, I've done it before. So It's been interesting. It's an interesting journey. It's never ending.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to build up to the extension. I probably should have asked you earlier. One of the unknown trivia about you is that you were the first cricket player who took a paternity leave. Was it an easy decision?
I mean, my family life, ex-wife and 2 children together, and Melanie and I together have 2 children. So we're quite a blended family. And, but my ex-wife didn't believe that cricket was a family environment, which is not. It's difficult. And in those days, there was no IPL. It was a particular season, was the summer, unless you went to England. So cricket board wasn't that understanding, and it was going to always be a cesarean section, so we knew what the date of the birth was going to be for Daniela. This is now in 2000. And the amazing thing in the long journey, because that was when Hansi Cronje was exposed with contacting with bookmakers, and I wasn't on that tour, so I was never involved in the inquiry, because the incidents that took place, I wasn't actually in the team environment. So, it was kind of a reason for it at the time, but while you're playing, try to explain to my ex-wife that I have a contract. So they've given me 4 days off to be with you for the birth, and then, we had domestic staff, both sets of parents, so it wasn't like she was in a new country on her own. She just said, no, you have to apply for paternity leave. So it wasn't a decision. I said, I could lose my job. She said, well, that's fine. I wasn't earning gazillions of dollars or rupees or rands, and if I lost my job, I was going to have to get a job after cricket anyway, so maybe this was the time. So I only ended up playing 3 years longer than that. And it wasn't a difficult decision, amazingly. I just got back. I was playing good cricket from 98 to 2000. I was playing good test cricket, and probably the best cricket of my life. And sometimes that's actually a good time to retire. When people still want you back, as opposed to, what are you still doing here? Give the youngsters a chance. So supported her in that, and just went, okay, if you don't want me to go to India for 2 months, I'll stay at home. And then, as I said, in the long run, I had no idea how things sort of turned out. It kept me out of any of the sort of the match-fixing situations that then transpired in the tour here to India.
Yeah. You have a special relationship with India. Both your kids were born in India. You named your daughter India, right? And now, of course, Nathan was also born in India. You decided to settle in Goa, right? You said you ride between the hotel and your stadium in a bike. What's your fascination with India? Why?
Well, it's less a fascination. We are. I think if you're fascinated, you'd kind of come and visit and leave. And we've always been. I learned to ride a motorbike in India. When I first came to India, my first experience as a coach. So as a player, you just, as I said, you stayed in the hotel. You never left the room, unless it was practice and matches. And then understanding the fact that growing up in a white privileged environment in South Africa, there was no diversity that I was ever exposed to. So India, they talk about diversity across states, but within states there's such diversity. And you can't experience diversity flying over at 30,000 feet or driving on an AC bus between grounds and airports. So team environment doesn't allow you to experience that, because you're in a 5-star hotel and you are taken care of very, very well. So the ability to get out was why it was important for me to ride a motorbike, because you can walk out for an hour and you can get maybe 8 kilometers down the road, or 4 there and 4 back. And just having the freedom of movement, but not in an AC, and going out into places that none of my teammates was important for me, because it was just a case of the more I learn about other people, the more I'm learning about myself. And growing up in South Africa, so segregated, this is an incredible opportunity to keep growing. And it was so important from that perspective. And then, I've always been somebody who's, as I said, not an adrenaline junkie. I've done the bungee jump in South Africa. We have the highest bridge jump. I've done that 3 times as a part of the sort of tourism roadshow, where I wrote my sort of tourism journals. And riding a bike, I learned to surf in South Africa from a lifestyle fitness, and also I'm scared of sharks. So getting in the water, kind of trying to overcome that fear, hasn't worked. 15 years later, I'm still petrified of sharks, but I get in nonetheless. So many things, that the benefits of traveling around India. So the connection with India is not, social media now, this way workers. If you're cricket, in the business of cricket, India is the place to be. South Africa, our economy pre-pandemic was technically in a recession. and they're now proudly trumpeting the fact that we've got to pre-pandemic levels. And it's like, okay, so still technically in a recession. So business is slow, everything is down. India, everybody's, is positive about what's happening. I mean, global economy or global affairs are interesting right now, frightening right now. And, you still, if you're in an environment where we've spent time in India as local as possible, as opposed to in 5-star.
Why did you choose Goa?
We love the beach, firstly. We needed a quiet village, so we're in the south. And it's a clean beach because there's so few people. There's also not a massive river that's sort of pumping, because everything sort of happens upriver, sadly. And there are organizations starting to try and fix that. And it's a case of, if you can resolve what's been thrown in upriver, then your beaches will be a lot better. But Goa I have a friend there who's got a surf school. And I'd met him in Mahabas. I've been involved with the Surf Federation of India for the last 10 years. So good friend. And he just said, come move with your family. And I was doing a lot of corporate leadership talks. And it's way easier to commute in India than from South Africa. You can't justify it. You can maybe stay 4 or 5 weeks. But living in Goa, affording our children the sort of lifestyle, they were on the beach every night. I mean, every afternoon from school, from 4:30 onwards, we were on the beach. So school, they get back at 3:30. It's a bit warm to go on the beach. So we in the house, they would draw, paint, and Nathan started playing chess. So that was a big part of what we were doing. And then on the beach every single evening, every day on the weekend, we were on the beach. So it was the lifestyle that we believe in. And in South Africa, we don't always have, because of security concerns and issues. We have a house that's in a small town, a small village, that has a mountain behind us and then the ocean in front of us. But because of security, we have a fence, an electric fence. We don't let our children leave the property without us. Whereas in Goa, we didn't know where they were. I mean, they literally, this house had puppies, so of course India was there, and Nathan was chasing the rooster over there, and you literally go find your children, and never concerned about, okay, it's 4:30, you must come now because we're going to the beach. Rather than, where are they? You must come back. We don't know where you are. So that sort of lifestyle, that outdoor lifestyle, is something that we believe in. And South Goa was something that afforded us that opportunity.
What do you miss most about South Africa when you're in India?
It's a tough question, because I've been so removed from family throughout my career. So children, parents, that you kind of just focus on, you live day by day, because you're living out of a suitcase. You're going from work, practice to play, to practice to play, to travel. So you have a pretty much an existence where you're concerned about family or only thinking about family. It's a big distraction. So it's quite rude to say, you almost got to put that away. I mean, you're obviously still involved. Your kids are struggling at school, or this is happening. But yeah, I miss family. So everybody now, because that's, it's been choices that you've made. This is my career. So people can say, well, if you miss your family, don't work in cricket. But it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something I'm good at. I can make a living out of it. So, that's probably the only thing. I mean, you can find the beauty in every country that you live, no matter where you are. Sweden was amazing. Just, the incredible, how clear and clean and everything is. Forests and lakes and ocean. But, living there for I don't miss anything. I don't miss only thing, because that's home. Home was in Sweden while we were there. So if you ask me, it would still be family. South Africa, Sweden, wherever I've lived, in Goa, it's.
Anything you miss about India when you're not here? Because now it's your second home.
Yeah, again, nothing. Family. As long as I'm with my family, I'm fine. I don't have that capacity to think 6 months down the line, which I think possibly is a disadvantage in some areas. But it was also just fueled out of necessity, is that you have to focus, be in the present, be in the now. So when I leave India and I go wherever home is, that's home. And that's all my energy and all my thoughts are what's happening on a daily basis, as opposed to, we're back and go in September, what are we planning? And it's just, when I get there, we'll deal with that.
Jonty, it's been super, useful and an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. The idea was to bring a lot of your other side and hopefully make people use of it in whatever they do. And I wanted to wrap up just with few more last pieces, you're known as for your agility, for your ability to take risk, also for your ability of making that split decision making. A lot of people who might be watching or listening this podcast are young guys who are trying to pursue whatever they want to do in professionally or outside of that. They may be confused whether they want to take it slow or fast. They might be confused whether they should pause or they should, figure out things. Based on your experience so far, what is that you would tell them, one or two, three things which has helped you in your career, which perhaps they could take on?
I think firstly, fielding was a passion of mine. It wasn't just that I was good at it. I really loved to field. So if I had to choose between fielding and batting as a cricket player, and if you said, okay, your career is going to be I would have chosen fielding. I really loved fielding. So I became really good at something that I was passionate about, because it's way easier, because there are no shortcuts to anything. So you got to put in the effort, and I spoke about the perfect practice makes perfect. So if our practice was high intensity, 10 minutes maximum, but that was my passion. So that is really to understand, and I didn't even know it was my passion. I was good at it, and I loved it. And I think we have time now to almost reflect on what our passions are, because that will take you beyond success in anybody else's eyes. And if you don't have that internal feeling of, emotionally you're making a difference, you're doing what you love to do, it's always difficult to keep going and keep going and keep going, even if you are good at something. So I think that was the one thing. The second thing was, and Justin, I spoke about the being ready, not getting ready. We often will pray or ask or request the universe, whoever, send me an opportunity. And often that opportunity is already gone. So that was, for me, was anticipation. I was expecting every single ball to come to me. So if it came to me, I could react. If it didn't come to me, I was ready for the next ball. So we often think about, if only we had been given an opportunity, or if we had an opportunity. Sometimes those have passed already. So, I don't know how you convert that into somebody's life or existence, but it's always being ready as opposed to get ready for the opportunity. And that was fielding in a nutshell for me, was that I was anticipating every single ball to come to me. And I'd done the work, the practice. So when the ball came, I could hopefully make the right choices. And I just think the final thing for me is that you're not going to get it right every time. We as coaches, we often talk about winning and losing, success and failure, because both of them really are experiences. And we always talk about, okay, you learn from your mistakes. So if you've done something wrong, you can, sure, 100%. But we also focus on you learn from your winning, because if you're successful, too often you kind of then forget what's got you there. In the long run, you forget what happened 2 years ago when you were struggling, and you put in all that hard work and you laid that foundation. So for us, it's about winning and losing is an experience. And from both experiences, you will learn lessons, valuable lessons. So, don't be down on yourself if it feels like you're just losing. And don't forget the fact when things are being successful, what has got you there? What can you learn and take out of that environment? We beat Chennai in Chennai, which is like one of the toughest things to do. And we had so many lessons that we had to get right for the next game. So you can't just go, okay, so the end result was tick. But in the process, there's many things that we can fix and rectify. So every experience, win or lose, success or failure, is just an experience of learning.
No, that's amazing. Be ready, don't get ready. You work with a lot of foundations, Jonty. Any work you want to share so that we can tell more about what the foundation is doing?
Yeah, I don't work with them. I go there for inspiration, and I think that's the key. They are doing so well without me. They don't really need me, but that's the great thing. That's the great thing about cricket, is that it gives the opportunity to kind of walk into doors where, and there's such need in South Africa. So, I spent the day the afternoon only, sadly. It felt like a day. It was incredible at the Annapurna Foundation. And, the Akshapatra, people who are feeding the feeding schemes here. But what blew me away with the Annapurna Foundation yesterday is that they have such a, they have obviously charity and foundation work, but because it's for free, it's not second class, So that's been the whole thing with regards to their founders, that if somebody was paying top dollar, would they get the same experience as somebody who's getting it for free? And that's their drive, And that for me was incredible, because I've been to places where socialism, Sweden amazing, where everybody has equal access to everything. But in South Africa, we have, free healthcare means that it's below par. We pay for private healthcare in South Africa because you don't want to go into the government hospitals. So he has a free hospital and free medical college, and it's world class. And I think that is so important, is that they're not sacrificing one for the other, is they can still be of world standards. So I was just blown away, and people just going, oh, you look a bit tired. I'm going, I'm overwhelmed, and not because physically it's demanding, but just emotionally it was just so incredible to see. And again, I keep talking about how we talk about making a difference, seeing people making a difference every single day. In Lucknow, went to the kitchen, there's 100,000 meals that go out of that kitchen. There's 5 kitchens in UP, 72 kitchens across India. Same, meals going out every single day for kids. And with the Annapurna Foundation, it was more about, okay, so and for many of the children, that's their only meal they get. But the Annapurna Foundation was, when they get to school, who's feeding them then? We need to give them something nutritional that'll get them to lunch, to their only meal of the day. So that's been amazing,
Finally, Jonty, what do you want Jonty Rhodes to be remembered when you're gone? What should be Jonty Rhodes' legacy?
Nothing. Nothing at all. I mean, I think hopefully my children will miss me. But it's, because that's just people's perception, really. I don't want anybody to, if my ashes get blown away or tossed in the ocean, that's kind of, for me, that it's a path that's been incredible. And the legacy that, at this stage, a fielder, that's just people's perception, because I was fielding as a 6-year-old. I was doing the same stuff as a 6-year-old that I was doing and applauded for and acknowledged for as a 32-year-old. So, I've always understood that legacy is just people's perception of you. I don't have a goal where, because I've made so many mistakes from a family point of view. Children I don't see for ages, wife left at home. So, my legacy is not something that I want to make a plaque and there has Jonty Rhodes and he did this. I want to make sure that I've lived my life to the full. It might sound selfish at times, but it's, there's no tick that I have to then still complete to ensure that the legacy is this. It's not. It's always going to be people's perspective or people's perception of who I am, whether it's the real me or not. So no legacy.
Thank you, Jonty. I just can't, this is the best way to wrap up. You've been an inspiration. You've given millions of kids in India an identity of being called, you are a Jonty Rhodes. Because when they attempted to catch the ball, you've been an inspiration to many, many people now doing that work off the field. So thank you for who you are, what you do. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking time to have this conversation, and I really look forward we could sit together again sometime in the future.
Thanks, Dilip. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonty. Pleasure it was.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
That was the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed and found the podcast useful. Conversation with Jonty was very special to me and the entire team around. If you find it useful and helpful to yourself and people around you, do me a favor, send it to one person on your WhatsApp group or anywhere around you. Share, subscribe, it would mean a lot to us. Thank you. You have any comments which would help me get better in what I do, leave it on YouTube, or you can reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or an email. And see you on the next episode. Thank you.